This is a short video on critiques of the supply-demand model. We do actually have a full module near the end of the course on market failure, but I find that it's important to introduce some of these concepts here. So two important critiques of the supply-demand model. First, we have one about distributive justice, who gets what and why. We introduced in our supply and demand model some consumers, and they are willing and able to pay certain amounts for goods, but we haven't really thought much about, well, what happens if you have markets for necessary goods, housing, food, water, essential medications, right? And then you have some people in these markets who are not able to pay the market price. Well, society needs to, from a moral and ethical standpoint, have some serious discussions about how to handle these issues. All societies face these problems and handle them slightly differently. And there should be some sort of general understanding of how these cases are handled. Another critique is on allocative efficiency. We introduced this in the first chapter, but there's really no room in this model for allocative efficiency or whether the combination of goods and services produced are societally optimal, or in other words, whether consumers are happy with the product mix and how much they're paying for certain goods and services, right? Obviously, consumers always want to pay less for everything. That's the whole idea of the demand curve, lower prices, higher quantity demanded. However, there needs to be some sort of cultural and ethical understanding of what is being produced, and are the products being produced the products which our society would like to have produced. All right, so in this vein, we say that markets are usually efficient, but they're not always. And so one obvious example of a market inefficiency here is this pollution picture showing it's possible that the quantity of pollution produced in certain markets is higher than the society would like. So again, we have a full chapter introducing a model covering this, following from the supply demand, but here we're just going to talk kind of conceptually about them. So a market failure occurs when the free market does not result in a socially optimal quantity of goods and services, for example, too much pollution, too little housing, and so on. There's a number of sources that we could have market failure. So far, we haven't really talked about markets and market competition, but we will. And right now, our supply-demand model is one of perfect competition, which might not be a reasonable assumption to make. You could have some mismatch of information. Sometimes buyers don't know perfect information about the products that they are consuming. Later on, we'll see externalities, external benefits or costs. So sometimes producing or consuming a product has implications to other people, not just the people who are producing and consuming it, like in the case of pollution. And then also the existence of public goods, so fire department, police, military, road maintenance, sewage. These are all essential for working societies. And we will say in this market that markets tend to underprovide those because a lot of people don't benefit from them unless they're actively using it, and so don't think to provide funding unless they actively need it. All right, so we can kind of go through some of these examples. I'll just kind of leave you free to read those on your own. Talk a little bit about public goods definitions. Public goods are non-exclusive, meaning that once a public good, like say a park, is provided, nobody can be excluded from consuming it. And non-rival, meaning that theoretically, one person consuming the good shouldn't prevent somebody else. So if I go to the park, it shouldn't, in theory, prevent somebody else from also going to the park. All right, so there's a variety of what we might call public goods. So education, I named a few the others, but there's also ones like climate, fresh air, healthcare. These are important issues moving forward in our educational system. So once again, it's really important to introduce these, and a lot of these concepts are just sort of outside the basic economic model, and so sometimes they're treated as external to economics, left to other disciplines like public science, things like that, philosophy, but they are very important to consider in our model, And so, again, we'll have a chapter at the end of the semester talking a little bit more about public goods and introducing formally a model. But I encourage you all to think as we're moving through this class about the implications of these models in some places where they potentially fall short.